Hey, it's the last passive AD Fnatic Upset, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
I would actually say it as a bridge question to the topic that we're going to get into, which people are going to know immediately once we get onto it. But what I'll say is this is actually a reason why, I mean, you've seen already on the Discord how I describe it. I'm actually totally open to the idea of not just coaching, but even low-level coaching. Like, I don't even, in theory, right, if someone was actually in theory even a good enough coach, like they just mentally had it all there, I could even see a world where someone below your rank could even coach you if they could apply some of the things we're talking about. And I'd even say a massive benefit of coaching, in my opinion, I'll tell you from personal experiences, it's like doing personal training in real life. If you're someone who has a really hard time on your own, keeping yourself disciplined, keeping yourself trying to improve, not just giving yourself a break, essentially, if you're the person, if you're your own boss, just give yourself time off all the time, get a boss. In this analogy, get a personal trainer, get a coach, get someone who's going to hold you to a standard, who even if it's just like when they check in next week, it's going to make you a little bit guilty, like, fuck, I better do something the night before, you know, whatever it is, it's going to hopefully streamline your efforts to be improving. You're actually going to be going for the same goal as opposed to, like, as you say, I even feel like you described it very early. I hope that was an epiphany early on when people said about the accounts. Like, that alone could make you guys climb. You all know that you do the poker thing where it's like, I'm up $200, but then at the end I was down 400. It's like, well, imagine if in the between, in this analogy, you could have switched accounts and you lost on the account that didn't have the 200 on, and who gives a shit? Like, that one's still up, isn't it? Because in this scenario, you're just trying to see how you can, how much money you can win is the equivalent of how high you could climb in League of Legends. So that's even a pretty good one. So one thing I want to start with is this. Before we get into the spicy angle, you're not at all against the concept of coaching, right? Like, someone, that's one of the reasons why this whole drama we're about to get into is being created and conflated, is people still take the very stupid Redditor thought of like, well, you're not bloody rookie, so why are you coaching this guy for any amount of money? With, like, obviously there are people who are total charlatans who were coaches and lied and maybe even are bad at coaching. Like, you're open to the idea of coaching, right? You don't have to be a top player to be a coach.
Oh yeah, 100%. When I said like VOD review your own games, there is a lot of value in having somebody who's higher level. Like I do solo queue coaching. Sometimes people will ask me of just like, oh, I don't want you to VOD review a game. I just want to like talk to you about these various thoughts that are in my head. Like there's so many angles to where coaching and just having a different opinion, even if they say kind of what you feel like when I model my coaching after Max Waldo. I've gotten like 3 coaching sessions with him, and a big way that he will go about things is just asking me questions. Because there are a lot of things that I was doing that I didn't actually understand why I was doing them. They were really good, but I didn't actually fully have that in my mind about why was standing in the wave at this particular point good. But him asking me questions and kind of forcing me to reveal the answer myself, like that is some really, really valuable coaching. And having the coaching skill and having high elo skill are 2 kind of different things. Like actually being able to properly convey your thoughts and teach somebody something doesn't really have much to do with your rank. Like there are people who, like if you take the best CSGO coach right now and you give them 3 months to learn League, like I would put them on a pro team. I would put them as even a solo queue coach, even though they've never actually played the game past like gold or something. It doesn't really matter as long as you can actually get those fundamental things of just guiding somebody towards a path. Like coaching is totally something that's viable. And best way I think about it is that people will say things of, oh, coaching is a scam if you're not Masters Plus and you're trying to go pro. It's the same concept of in fitness, like you're not trying to be Mr. Olympia, therefore coaching isn't worth it. And you can just get all these free resources online. Like, no. If there's anything that you're taking as a hobby and you want to get better at, even if it's something that you know is not going to make you any money, or if it's not physical fitness to where it's something like playing harmonica, playing piano, like these aren't things that are going to actually make you money, but you want to get better at them. So coaching is perfectly acceptable as a thing for you to do.
Because obviously we're going to do a little bit of a spicy convo now about the infamous NEACE incident, right? Which I just think is a great convo to have. It's actually not even just specifically about NEACE, even though certainly there are a lot of details on that are funny and interesting and have been misrepresented. But I would just say it's the best example of this topic because, like I say, I feel like so much of the discussion in it starts in the weeds that we were just in there of like, wait a minute, so like, should he even be allowed to coach? And are all coaches that aren't pro scams? And like, yeah, but if he is above you, like, yeah, but he has a like long history of coaching, and besides maybe he was like, and people are just lost in the weeds, mate. Whereas like essentially we'll break it all down very quickly in this way, which is you got drawn into this whole like drama, even though obviously it was to do with NEACE himself, people questioning him on Reddit, and then a few famous streamers. But the way you got drawn in was you were one of the people who actually went and looked up some of the facts. Like essentially one of the things I know that irritated you and Ellis and others was that this guy, his basis for coaching wasn't what I just did. He didn't just go, look, I've played the game a long time. I've got a lot of experience coaching. I'm obviously coaching people who are often lower level than me, and I'm teaching them fundamental concepts of the game. If he said that, by the way, I don't care what price he puts on it. Caveat emptor. It's up to the fucking fan what they want to pay for it. If they're stupid enough to pay him $10,000 or $1, it's up to them. That's between him and them. And if they think it's worth the money, it's worth the money to them. But to me, the reason this got completely lost in the woods is, as far as I can tell, the main thing that irritated people like you was that he made actual, tangible, material claims that are just false, or rather he doesn't have evidence for, such as far as I know, you could correct me on this, he claimed to be multiple times a challenger. Now, I believe in one post he did admit it was like on the LAN server, but the way he did it on the other ones, as far as I know, was bereft of that context, hoping, since you know he's an American playing on an NA server, that you're all going to assume it's he just got to challenger on NA, where, Bjergsen is playing and all these players we're talking about, right? Give me the gist of, was this your entry point? Was that the thing that sort of set you off as to like, right, I'm going to see if this is some bullshit, or I'm going to expose if it is?
I mean, so funnily enough, the first experience that I ever had with NEACE was him lying about my rank.
Oh, okay.
There was a time where I was 400 LP. No other Tryndamere was even Masters because it was just a terrible time. And I was having a really interesting playstyle, and a lot of people were making content about me. And he was getting a lot of questions, and he said that I was never Masters, even though I was actively 400 LP GM at the time, a couple games away from Challenger. So that was my first experience, is just, I know that he knew what I was because people were asking, hey, this specific thing that I was actually getting and achieving. So my first interaction with him is him provably lying about me. And this whole kind of thing recently, last year, started off with him not refunding somebody who who canceled coaching before 24 hours, just did a full no refund at all. And ultimately, the biggest thing that I saw is that, hey, he claims to be a multi-season, multi-role NA challenger, but I've never actually seen anything about that. Somebody a year or so before said that his backpack that he constantly shows of a challenger backpack, which is a reward that you used to get for ending a season in Challenger, was actually a LAN backpack. And then
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought like, okay, this backpack is LAN. So I just looked through his social media on Twitter, Discord, YouTube, et cetera, and I found that, yeah, he had never actually hit Challenger on an A.
By the way, just to confirm this, if people don't know, you can actually 100% verify all this stuff, right? It's possible to search the old seasons where people were. Like, it's not that, like, essentially you had to capture the screenshot. If he had it, he had it. And if he didn't, he did. Like, as far as I know, even to this day, you can go back and actually see where people's ranks were on their accounts, right?
Yeah. So we can get into that because that'll apply later.
Right. Okay, no problem.
Yeah. So I saw that he constantly talked about, hey, I'm going for Challenger, this, yada, yada, yada. There was even times where he said, I didn't hit Challenger this season. In Season 7, he said, I didn't hit Challenger on an A this season. I only hit it on LAN. I'll try again next year. So saw, hey, never actually hit Challenger. So I brought up all of this information, kind of compiled it into a thread. And his response was to post a screenshot of Challenger on a specific account that I had said that only hit Grandmasters. And the problem with lying, if you don't know, if you want to be a good liar, you never make specific claims, because he made a specific claim of this account hit Challenger at this time on this region. And there is a website, League of Records, which compiles the ladder information all the way back until Season 4 on ladder reset. So you can see day by day every single account that has ever been in Masters Plus. And so since he made that specific claim, then all of a sudden you can track, oh, hey, this is the LP that it hit every single day. And if you don't know, to hit Challenger, you need to be Challenger on ladder resets, because that's when Challenger actually refreshes and actually counts. So you can never be Challenger for less than a day. So it showed that he peaked like 60 LP away from Challenger. And even the story that he had before I brought this information up, which was he had a game on his YouTube where he was at 60 LP away. He won that. He said that he won that game and another game, and then he hit Challenger. But even if he won those 2 games, he wouldn't have hit Challenger. So also, there's just a lot of very obvious photoshopping elements. Like,
oh, geez, really?
Yeah, the text is italicized. It's the wrong text. And there's also
even that's so crazy to me, because it's like, bro, just get someone really good with Photoshop. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And
come on.
I mean, he has a graphic design degree from Full Sail University.
Well, the joke is, if it's that bad, does he? You know, that would be the obvious follow-up, right? I know.
It's kind of a meme in America, Full Sail University.
All right, fair enough.
It's just a huge like scam.
Right.
Like a lot of people call it Full Scam University.
Okay.
So like there's also a concept with the CSS of the league client to where your name and icon will be exactly centered with the Challenger icon.
Okay.
And it was super far to one side.
Oh, man alive. I love this shit, though. I just love how amateurish it is, mate. Like,
yep. Yeah. And so he just never thought that anybody could ever really kind of prove that wrong. And then so I did and showed that, hey, he never hit Challenger, despite constantly over the years claiming season 6, season 7, season 9, NA Challenger, multiple roles. And it always like changed. That's the problem, is that the story always changed, where sometimes you would say, okay, I photoshopped the screenshot, or I didn't Photoshop the screenshot. And it would just always be what is most convenient at the time. And the problem is not that he only peaked 50 LP away from Grandmasters. High Grandmasters is a legitimate accomplishment.
Yeah, that would be a good rank to be. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Like that doesn't preclude you from coaching. The problem is that on his website, on his YouTube channel, everywhere, all social medias, anytime he would get any criticism, he would always deflect to, I am a multi-role, multi-season NA Challenger. And that was his primary advertisement for him as a creator. And then so...
By the way, has he ever even had like a moment of lucidity where he sort of copped to like, most of this wasn't true? Does he always just double down or just sort of ignore the critique generally?
So yeah, like sometimes he'll say, okay, I faked it. But then when other people will say it, like when he had a podcast with another league creator who kind of gave a little bit more specific questions, he said, okay, I photoshopped it. But then when he's talking to like people who get his coaching, he's like, oh no, I didn't Photoshop it.
That's
like
so
that
crazy.
was legit.
What's weird about that as well, dude, is that's also so bizarre to me, because that's almost like that behavior people always point out about politicians, where you can tell they don't really understand like the internet. So they think it's like a new day, so I can just say whatever I want, right? And it's like, well, someone can fact check that. Like that almost, the joke is he's on the internet. Like, I don't know how here's the weirdest thing about this. There's one area NEACE inarguably actually does know something we don't know, which is, I would assume if you did this track of behavior, no one would believe you. You'd be completely a pariah and an outcast. All your fans would leave. They'd all find out about this evidence. They'd see the evidence. They'd go, fuck this guy. He's a liar, and leave. But if anything, it seems like the opposite, dude. Like, it seems like actually this like strengthens his fans, that it's like an us versus the world thing. They almost get invested in the lie of like, no, but he did do it. And they're all just against him, LS and Dominate and, Yasukeh. It's almost like he does know his own audience, bro. Like he somehow does know like what to say to them, because they seem to be on his side still. Like, I would have thought this would completely expose you, because as you say, his whole marketing's based on this foundational lie.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that most people aren't caught up with the entire thing. So they like, if they interact with it, they'll only see the things that NEACE says. And when NEACE never actually brings up the primary criticism, he'll bring up things like, oh, my coaching is too expensive. Like things that I have never said, or no legitimate person has ever said.
I can see though why that's smart though, because as I said, that is what all, like I said at the beginning, what all the idiots always go to. It's like $350. It's like, what? That's not even the fucking argument, you idiots. Like they always get lost on that part. True.
Yeah, like one thing that's important to understand is that before my information about fake Challenger came out, half the community was defending him. You were defending him.
Yeah, sure.
Because like, aside from actual fraud, like there's nothing inherently wrong about him running his business and charging what he wants.
Yep.
So half the community was on his side, and now no like real name is on his side unless they just don't know what's going on.
Like, by the way, my analogy, if people don't get it, would just be like this. It's just like if someone charged a lot for a massage. Is the massage good? Okay, then maybe if you want to pay $300 for it, you like that guy the most, go for it. I'd pay like $80 and have someone else do it. But the point is, It's not like there's only one game in town. I don't really need to pick it outside the guy doing the $350 massage. It's a rip-off. Shouldn't even be this. Like, who would waste their life doing that? Yeah, on that topic, I'm fine with it. But yeah, I can see why this irritates you though, because he's sort of using that as a smokescreen when the real problem is not only very different, but you can nail him to the wall on it. It's not something vague. Like, it's not even, you notice about how good is he at the game. As you say, it's possible you can even be good at the game and not be at this rank, but he's made it. He's the one who did this, guys. Fans, he is the one who made it about his rank, not us.
Yeah. The framing that I had when he first said, I'm going to hit Challenger Korea, was that the framing that I had was he could totally hit rank 1 on Korea, be the best player League of Legends has ever seen, and it would not change the fact that he lied about ever hitting NA Challenger. His NA Challenger total, even if he gets rank 1 Korea, will still be 0.
Yes.
Still be 0. And that's just fundamentally the problem, is that I'm somebody who really cares about like honesty and integrity. That's the number one most important thing for me as a man. And just every single aspect of like NEACE, he just really has no relationship with the truth. Just one kind of quick example to kind of show this is earlier this week, he's in solo queue streaming, has his client off screen, and he is his team is full AD. He doesn't want to play it out. So he locks in Ghost Cleanse Nunu and dodges, says to his stream, hey, sorry, somebody on my team was trolling, I had to dodge. But he didn't know that the game went through. So it clearly shows that, hey, he's the one that's trolling.
Right.
And so he brings up this kind of like fake excuse of, oh, my role was top lane and this guy was trying to steal my top lane, even though he wants to play mid. And it showed that he was mid in Champions Select. So he's just creating this fake reason. And the problem with that is it's fine to be the Ghost Cleanse Nunu who's trying to force a dodge. That's not the problem. I'm not particularly bothered by that. It's the problem that he's lying about the actual like circumstances of the situation. And that's really just kind of what irks me in this situation of doesn't matter that he didn't hit NA Challenger. It matters that he's lied about it and doubled down and doubled down and doubled down. And that he's actively trying to defraud people who don't know any better, because most of his traffic came from being first in Google search results.
Right.
You type in League of Legends coaching, you see, hey, okay, this is Challenger coaching from this guy, and he's got all these reviews from like Ninja or something.
Right.
And so, like, yeah, this looks legit. Like, Ninja likes it, I like it. So, like, that kind of defrauding is just my fundamental issue with it, is that it's just something I take seriously, and it's not something that he does.
Yeah, one thing I always found just bizarre about this whole equation as well is, if you notice, one of the tactics he's used, which is a very common tactic of liars, is you just keep shifting the goalposts or what the discussion point is. So, like, the reason why that works, if people don't know it, is essentially then you have to have 50 arguments against the guy. Then you have to have a different take on it. Also, you can just keep moving it until it's something abstract, can't you? You move from a specific to an abstract. Like we're pointing out, he went from, did he ever make Challenger on NA, which was his claim, which he has yet to ever prove that he did, to I'm just really good at League of Legends, which is inferred by my rank on Korean solo queue, which is a totally different argument, even though I can understand to someone maybe very young or someone who doesn't understand logic, might seem like it's sort of the same argument, but it isn't. I mean, I'd just throw this out there. The reason why, to me, the whole Korean thing stank to high heaven from the moment he announced it is because, wait a minute, think about what I just said. So the real dispute and the problem NEACE has, and why he's getting called out by people much bigger than him, which is what he's annoyed about. He wouldn't be annoyed if it was all normal people his peer. He's annoyed that, you know what, if LS puts a video out there, actually a few 100,000 people might think you're a moron and never check your shit out. Like, he can't control those people. So I can see why that triggered him, right? But essentially, if he wanted to just make that look stupid, you wouldn't go, I'm going to Korea, guys. You'd go, I will now get Challenger on NA. Like, it's the most obvious fucking thing. And even, I'd say this, think it through, fans. If he's really good in Korea, then it'd be even easier to get fucking Challenger on NA, you idiots. Like, the point is, there's a reason he's intentionally not trying to ever do the one thing that he claimed to have done that he has never done yet. That in itself already is mega sus to me, because that makes me think something Yasukeh, like, he hopes that, like, people won't scrutinize the Korean ladder as much, or they won't know the other players, or there'll be, to me, it already sounds like you're setting something up. You're trying to shift the scene, as it were, because you've got some other reason you think you can succeed in this other thing. In fact, the obvious one to me is, because people revere Korean solo queue much more than NA, NA. You're trying to use what we talked about earlier with the ranks as a kind of fuckery. You're trying to make it like, right, I can't get Challenger on NA. Now, obviously, I could never get it on Korea either, but I wouldn't need to, because it wouldn't actually need to be Challenger I'd need on Korea. If I got a certain rank, I could sort of claim, well, you know, isn't that like when pros go there during the boot camp and they get stuck in Diamond? Like, isn't that really sort of like, there's almost some of that going on. Do you get a similar vibe?
Yeah, no, that's also one thing, is that pros did get stuck in Diamond when Diamond was significantly higher than it is now. Like Balls, when he got stuck in D2.
Oh, that was season 5, if people don't remember. Yes, that was 2015, exactly. Yeah.
When people talk about pros getting stuck in Diamond, they're talking about Diamond 2, which is the equivalent of 500 LP on Masters Korea right now. So, like, nobody as a pro would get flamed for being 500 LP Masters.
No, of course not.
Because with all of this, like the patch that NEACE hit Masters on, the Korean Masters population tripled on that single patch. Because it was the, if you don't know, it's the patch where LP gains increased. So just everybody was getting into Masters. And it was also with a fresh account. Like, when he hits, NEACE in Season 7 went to Korea for a month and hit Diamond 2 promos. That Diamond 2 promos, as a proportion of player base, is more impressive than hitting Masters on Korea now. So it's the problem of, one is that Riot's never actually talked about ranked inflation. So because they never talk about it and they just kind of sweep it under the rug, people still hold Season 8 Masters prestige to Season 13 Masters, even though they're completely different ranks. And it's also, like what you said, people have this kind of vague mythology about what Korean solo queue is like. So if you do whatever rank in Korea, you can always just say your experience on an A or any experience on an A or EU is just not comparable at all. Like I can say, oh, hey, Diamond 1 on Korea is better than Challenger on EU West or Challenger on an A. So I'm basically these ranks. And nobody can really actually say that unless they've actually played on Korea. So none of his fans have played on Korea. So it's really easy to, especially in high elo, so it's really easy to kind of make things as vague as possible. It's just a really good kind of storytelling technique to kind of make people sweep this under the rug.
Another thing, obviously, you alluded to it there, which to me is an enormous red flag, is it's not, guys, that he went to Korea, he made an account like NEACE will be Challenger Korea, he started playing on the account, you know, he took time to acclimatise to, you know, the sleeping hours and and not speaking English in solo queue and the different style of play, and then once he got sort of, you know, when he got going, he started climbing, and then boom, he was in Masters. And you know what? Everyone, egg on your face, look how good NEACE is, right? You can fill me in on the details, but as far as I know, it wasn't the gist that he went there. The whole reason he was actually getting even more scrutiny is he was fucking shit and was perma-stock, and in a way that was really embarrassing, where he was like switching champions every few days, and he was obviously bitching like a motherfucker, and he was making mad claims. Like people might remember where he just tried to claim, I remember Nemesis had a clip this, he just tried to claim that like he took the fact that years ago, if you came like for an official Riot tournament, you'd get a Riot account that was a special account. He took that and he tried to imply when he was perma-stock, as far as I remember, that like any Western pro just got a special account that like magically boosts you through Korean. So he essentially tried to like invalidate the idea anyone could ever climb. And like that was like, and think why he's doing this, guys. He's doing this because clearly he doesn't think he's going to hit the Masters or wherever tier he thinks he's going to go to. And this is sort of like he's basically making a feather bed for his fall, isn't he? So it's not going to seem as bad. But then magically, as far as I know, he abandons that account because he's fucked it completely with the elots, I'm assuming. And he makes a new account. Not only that, he doesn't do all his old mistakes. He doesn't keep switching between champions. He does your exact fucking game plan. He one-tricks Tryndamere in a way that's effective. And then also, as far as I know, wasn't it like he just had a crazy climb, like some short sample size where you just got all the gains and you get in there. And then the second you get there, you just brag. It's like, so technically no one could dispute it. He did get to that rank in Korean solo queue, but when you shared in some of the context, correct me if some of it's wrong, by the way, but as far as I know, the more the context you put in, the less impressive it looks, which is the opposite to, by the way, what he's trying to give off, which is I am actually this rank, I'm actually this good. Like, was the story generally correct there? There's some other details you can throw in?
Yeah, more or less. Like when he first announced it, like I predicted, and most people predicted that he would be around Diamond 1 to Masters level. Like that's what he would be at. So when he all of a sudden gets stuck in as low as Plat 3, like consistently demoting to Plat, and being so low, that's what the bar kind of became, to where people just entirely forget that he should have been a Masters player from the start. And so it's just entirely shocking that he's so ridiculously far low that that's the floor that people put him at. So that now when he hits Masters, it's way more impressive than he would have just hit Masters right away in terms of the sort of bragging power, because people think, oh, hey, NEACE is now a plat player. So now all of a sudden when he hits Masters, it's a very, very impressive climb. And yeah, he did have an account that he had about 1,700 games on, smack dab in the middle of plat, creates a new account, goes through the ranks, gets kind of stuck in plat. Funnily enough, adopts my specific build that only I do, and immediately shoots up to Masters, which you're welcome, NEACE.
In itself, that part is so dirty too, isn't it? The idea he literally did like your style to then be like, see, I've proved you all wrong. It's like, this guy, what's sad is, dude, I always say this in esports, right? In esports, there are no true villains. Like, there's no Bond villain level guy. If you know in CSGO, I always even say, I stress that Nickel and Ion guy, we talk about him like he's like that. That's just almost for our own romanticization to believe we're slaying a dragon. He's just a shit used car salesman, I always say. Have you noticed how the bad guys are always so underwhelming, aren't they? Like, it's like he's just like a whack henchman in a movie who gets shot off an aeroplane or something. And just, you don't give a shit after that point in the movie, you know?
Yeah, it's nothing too grandiose. I even noticed that there are very specific strategies that I'll do in the game, like specific ways of proxying a certain wave or something. And I'll do that one day, and then the next day NEACE will be doing it. It's actually a funny thing is that if you Alt-Tab on Windows, it will show a picture of each screen that you have. And NEACE has been leaking his Discord.
And could they see your thing?
Over a year.
Right.
In his coaching group chat with all of his coaches, he posts my videos in there, and then just talks about them, but won't actually talk about it publicly. I think a problem with that is that...
By the way, shout out to this guy also for managing to be on the internet this long but have like boomer tendencies. Because that one, by the way, all I'll say without giving away the story is I have that happen all the time in business, Yasukeh, where I do these Zoom calls with like real world businessmen, and then they go, can you see my screen now? And they do that screen because they have MacBooks, right? Where on a MacBook, it does the same thing. It's a bit like Alt-Tab. When you go to the screen with the documents, it shows all your documents you've had open. And bro, I'm not even joking, like... I won't say if I do it or not because it might be illegal, but let's just say if I was to screenshot as they're doing that, like I can see all, like I can actually see, like, you know, the parody thing where you show someone's Gmail, like I can just see that for real. I can see all the emails they've gone. Sometimes I can see like other documents in business. And even though, yes, I understand because they're a boomer, it appears for 1 second. All the time I'm just thinking like, bro, like all I have to do is have screen recording running. I've got all this shit. Like that's so hilarious that he denies it, but then you can just see it on like the Alt-Tab.
Yeah,
Why?
He went as far as to leaking the private financial records of somebody else.
Fucking hell.
Like, I don't want to get like more into specifics, but yeah, he leaked sensitive information of somebody else. And at that point, I'm like, all right. I tried to back channel through somebody else who like we're both kind of mutuals with, and tried to get him to like, hey, here's how to stop it. And he's just not stopping it. So he's just constantly leaking DMs with other people. And yeah, no, at that point, you have a responsibility to not leak other people's financial information. By the way,
the other thing as well is this. Oh, no, I mean, literally, it could be illegal depending on where you're from. The other thing as well is this, and I know this will seem, unfortunately, like a counterintuitive, or like maybe people will think like, isn't that just like tangential? How's that connect? But I'll just say it, like, one of the things in my line of work is you also try and pay attention to patterns of behavior, because essentially, like a classic example I'll give people now so they'll understand what I'm talking about is, if you have a friend who, you know, you've known them years and years, and, you know, they get excited about things and they talk about things and they have strong opinions and they have crazy ideas. But then every now and then they'll do that thing where when they're telling you something, they keep saying like, honest, like, look, I swear on my mum's life, this really happened. Eventually you start to think like, doesn't that infer that all the times you didn't say that, like maybe you were just lying to me then, or like you didn't really mean that, or I even should actually always like shade in that you potentially lie. I mean, you obviously should do that anyway, but you get the premise. Like what they do is actually a famous concept that, like, famously, that's what they say about liars, is where the liar gives himself away is the one time he knows he's telling the truth, he really can't handle the idea you might think he's lying, but in doing so, he gives away his whole game as to when he lies. So all I'll say is this: if NEACE had been not just multiple times NA Challenger, but multiple roles NA Challenger through different seasons. We're talking like season 7, season 9. Now we're in season 13, guys. If he'd been all these things, then going to Korea and getting Masters once in this like small sample size way wouldn't actually be that big a thing to crow about. Look, you still might talk shit on people. Like, if people don't know, tying into what you said earlier, he tried to conflate that because he'd been stuck in plat, then a bunch of people said, I bet he'll never even get past diamond. And then he used that as like, this was what it was all about, guys. Look, I proved them all wrong. Yeah, he did do that. But even so, that part aside, you wouldn't be quite as sort of smug as he was when you got Masters, I feel, if you'd already done it a bunch of times. You know what I mean? Like, the way he even did that, it almost felt like, for real, the second he hit that and saw that badge, I bet it almost felt like he was like, whoa, hands off the keyboard, don't want to fuck this up at all. Like, I'm here now. Like, whoa, how much can I milk this? Like, fuck, I've got a whole week. I've got to get all these bits. Like, bro, if you just, like, the obvious joke would be, if you hit that rank, you'd go, right, next rank. Now we're going for Challenger, wouldn't you? Like, that would be the next goal because to me, it's all still going to come back to the same thing, which is one, prove it over a long time, just an obvious thing to say. And then two, now when you go back to NA, it's not even that like you must now go get Challenger in NA. Like surely that's not even, how can anyone not think that must be the conclusion at the end? Like if he now goes to NA and does not ever get Challenger, I don't care if he goes, well, I didn't want to, I don't need to, you know, I already did. I'm sorry. He now has no excuse not to do it as far as I can tell. Like, I actually think he's painted himself in a corner, even though I get that to his fans. He's actually won. He's beaten us all in their minds, you know.
Yeah, no, like it's really just about kind of just shifting frames, and it's just, this is what is possible for him. So take the peak of what is possible for him and make that just be the most absolute victory possible. And like, yeah, he's never really going to try to hit Challenger on NA. He's never really going to do anything that is much more understandable or relatable for people. And ultimately, it's just, what does he think he can get away with is pretty much as far as he'll go. And ultimately, it's just, you can kind of notice these patterns and use this as a sort of template of just noticing what a liar is like, so that you can just look at it everywhere else of certain patterns of behavior. And also just really just the biggest thing with NEACE is just that he's an incompetent liar. Like, there's totally ways that could have been avoided for this. And the path that NEACE took recently, where he's kind of being a little bit more, oh, woe is me, victim, like, why am I getting all of this hate? Not trying to be as bombastic and aggressive towards people. Because that's ultimately the biggest reason why people wanted to find a lot of this stuff on NEACE and like attack him so much, attack his coaching. It's not just that he was a bad coach, because if you look at like Pro Guides, Skill Capped, a lot of those other sites are really bad. They give just objectively incorrect information just for clickbait.
Oh, for sure.
And a big reason is just that he would constantly attack people who had never said anything about him. Just attack. And as soon as people tried to, you know, go back into it, it's like, oh, hey, people are attacking me because they're jealous. But it's like, I would not want to be in the kind of position that he is in right now. Or ever, really. Like, it's just not, it's not what's important to me. Like, I would rather have my integrity over having to coach solo queue people forever and living my entire life as a lie, ultimately.
Yeah, the other thing as well that I find so weird about this is the actual end conclusion. Obviously, it doesn't matter if you're one of his fans, you're not going to give a fuck. But to people who care about the truth, is it ends up way worse than where it started. Like at the start, it was just someone who, to be kind, you could claim is like fudging or accidentally not mentioning the specifics of their real ranks and allowing you to think otherwise. I would say if you just look at his track record of behavior, he knew what he was doing. This was clearly like an intentional omission of the fact it wasn't the NA server, it was the LAN one. Yeah, I can think you even said about the backpack. Like, he could have just mentioned himself at any point, by the way, that's just a LAN backpack, don't worry. I'd even say, by the way, if you downplayed it like that, you'd seem cooler as a coach. Think like, all right, he's not trying to sort of like sell me a full. But the whole thing with him seems to be, the actual end conclusion is, forget League of Legends. He's someone who not only habitually lies as a standard default practice, but never cops to them. Or if he does, even goes back on the admission later, which is so weird because, like I say, it does almost in the end just become an exercise about how people lie and what they refuse to acknowledge and what cognitive dissonance happens and how you can trick people if they, like, essentially one of the ways he tricks you is if he's the one who gets to set the framing on the information, or he gets to pick which information you've seen playing and what order and from what person. So, like, at the end, it's almost not even about League of Legends anymore. It's just about how people lie. It's weird, isn't it?
Yep, exactly. And yeah, so a big kind of thing with it is that he just never wanted to really take any L. Like, if you took the small L at first, then everything would have been diffused.
Yes.
But it's constantly wanting to get every single thing possible. I mean, one thing is that, like, another thing that he has been shown to be very likely that he never addresses is the concept of him having fake clients. If you look at a 6-month period when he was active, if you look at a 6-month period where he was most active, 80% of his clients had like 10 games on the account and instantly stopped playing at all on that account, which would imply that these are actors, which this is a very common thing that businesses will do. Like, say if you open up a new coffee shop, you're going to have a bunch of your friends and a bunch of like your family in that coffee shop to make it seem more lively, make it seem like, oh, hey, this is the place to be. So, like,
or even just leave the first Yelp review or whatever, the classic ones. These are all things that people do by default, sure.
Yeah, like if you look at how much money he alleges to make, there is no logical basis for what it actually would be of how much money he says he's making from coaching. Even if he had full booking, like 24/7 on his available schedule, it still wouldn't be even close to what he actually alleges to make. And so saying that, oh, hey, I'm somebody who gets all of these bookings, like, here's all of these fake bookings, which scams some chump into thinking that, oh, hey, this is a really popular product. If I don't get this, I'm missing out. By
the way, just in case people aren't aware, that would literally be fraud. Like, that's the literal crime. Like, we're not even talking now about it's just being a bit of a dick. Like, that's just business, like, malpractice. Like, that's illegal. Yep. Yeah, of course.
And that's the thing, is that there are these things that are just literally illegal business practices. Yes. But, like, at this point, like, who would have the will to sue, And since nobody really has the will to sue, like, there's winning in the court of public opinion, and there's winning in an actual court of law. So there's going to be no resolution on that. And if there's no court documents that's saying, hey, you can't do this, then there's no reason for him to stop.
A couple more questions. One is this. The reason why I find this so bizarre, but in a way I don't, because like, if I try to look from his perspective, like I say, I actually think his fan base just rocks with him even harder. I've seen this online. Whenever anyone sort of makes themselves like, I'm a victim, other people who are sort of lifelong losers jump in like, we must protect this guy at all times. Mr. President, get down. Like, and they all just take all the bullets for you. They get involved in all the stupid arguments. They talk about all the minutiae. They just bring up, they themselves do the cognitive dissonance. Like, right, you're just obsessed with him. Like, blood, he lives rent-free in your head. All that shit that we've all seen on the internet. Like, that works. But the weirdest part to me is, at the end, if I'm him, it's like, you have to just live the lie as well, though, bro. You have to just live this completely... Like, you're not that good. You know that all the people who think you are must in some way be sort of an idiot. And even worse, like, because you're getting involved now in this stupid drama where, like, essentially, this is the worst part of it. You might get more actual money out of it. Maybe it'll get some people to come and get some lessons. But your, like, bigger reputation is getting shredded. Because here's why it's so weird to me, Yasukeh, is the reason why I initially thought this whole debate was just about people saying, no coach should be $350 unless he's Chovy, is because if you ever look online, famously, most of the coaches that do like the famous coaching, they are all lower. They're people who are in like Diamond 1. And then the point is they coach like me, some shit player. And then if you ever go and look on YouTube, they're all like, even their Soloq game, they're commentating on, it's like they're not that good in it, but they just know basic concepts like when to group, when to abandon a lane, when to fucking go all in a team. And that's great. Like that's why the lesson costs $80 or whatever, and why it makes sense that I might pay for it. Again, I wouldn't be thinking I'm going to Challenger. I just want to go to Plateau or something, whatever it might be. Yep. So like, then what's weird is he seems like he's actually sort of a unicorn in that sense, because I'm not aware of anyone else who has no pro connections, who has the same fame for coaching, but it's all based on lies. Like, the rest of them seem to just be at peace with the fact they're low-level little fuckers who play fucking support and just have, like I say, have peaked at D2 once in their life. Like, he actually seems quite weird in that regard. I've never seen someone who, on the one hand, like, does this thing where he tangentially through drama interacts with the esports and competitive side, but then is himself absolutely a casual as fuck individual, and his whole basis seems to be coaching casual players. So I don't really get where he fits in the world, mate. It just seems like a weird individual.
Yeah, so that's one thing, is that he's tried to quit League about 10 or 12 times, like to go into some other community, and just doesn't really enjoy playing the game, and then just found one thing that actually finally like clicked of doing this whole coaching thing. And to me and you, like, we wouldn't want to live this life of a lion. It would kind of eat away at us. But like, not everybody is like that, you know? Some people are perfectly willing to just live their entire life as a lion. It just doesn't really matter to them. And the whole thing about him having a lot of fans is that a lot of them would just be like anti-LS fans or anti-Dom fans.
Right, I see. He's courted those people too, I see, right.
Yeah, is that like like a lot of people who would go towards the NEACE side might just see one clip that's an excerpt of a live viewing of LS, where LS is just saying, NEACE is just weird. And like, people don't care about your rank, people care about the fact that you lied about Challenger. They'll just see one clip where LS is just going off, and they won't understand the broader context of. There were like several years before all of this drama went off, like 2-3 years, where NEACE was constantly attacking LS just for the random things, just calling him a backseat warrior. Like, you've never been pro. Why are you criticizing this pro player for buying 20 wards a game? They know better than you. Constantly just attacking him for years, and LS would specifically not say anything because he just kind of knew that it was just a ploy for attention. And then the first time that LS actually says anything about him, NEACE goes super hard at it and says, oh wow, like, please invite me on your podcast to talk about this like a man.
Classic.
So kind of prove them right at that point directly. And so that's the thing, is that a lot of the people who go towards NEACE's side, one, they hate LS, and then two, if you only see part of the drama, then it's really easy to just say, okay, I want to be on NEACE's side. Like, it seems like if you don't understand the whole lying about Challenger thing, you don't understand like some of these very basic things, then it's really easy for people to side with NEACE. Like, this is a big thing, is that on the Twitter audience, they will get a lot more of this information, whereas the YouTube audience didn't really get that. And there was a lot of like vagueness with that it's really easy to get into a drama halfway through, and then since you don't understand the full context, it looks like this person is really in the right and this person is just like, the entire audience of League of Legends is completely wrong.
One thing I did want to ask about as like a more specific little drill down is, I know from LS's own career, because he's someone himself who went through all the years of exactly what you're talking about. Like, how can you tell people you were never pro, you were never in Challenger, and people have done the same thing with him. You were duo queued all the way through and all that shit. They've done all the same. Funny enough, that's part of the reason I told you I was actually initially defensive of the idea of coaching, because I thought, this is just the same thing they did to all the people who, like, same thing with Veteran. He was obviously never a pro player in Europe, you know, like, how could you ever coach? But one thing I want to ask is this. Another thing NEACE does is he doesn't just claim, like I say, like, I'm just someone who has a lot of experience and I coach people worse than me. If you go to his Twitter account, it is literally dubbed Macro King. He calls himself a king of macro. Now, all I'm going to say is this. Look, anyone can be taken out of context. You can always find a clip of someone like fucking up when you're speaking live and in a setting. Another thing that even happens when you do live video, I'll say, is you think a thought in your brain, but like a word gets caught and it doesn't come out. And because that word doesn't come out, it sounds like you said something wrong. But in your brain, you think you said it correct, so you don't go back and go, oh, sorry, I meant to say this. And so famously, like with names, that happens. Like, there'll be a time I'll say Showmaker when I mean Faker, but if you just listen to what I'm saying, you'll know the context. I'm talking about damn one's mid laner, so it doesn't really matter that I said Faker there. You know that I really just misspoke and meant Showmaker, right? So what I would say is this. I've seen some clips that imply he doesn't have a particularly high-level game understanding outside of specific settings, and like, certainly to call himself a macro king might be, let's say, an exaggeration, if not quite a disingenuous statement. What would you say to that?
I mean, so one thing is,
because I've seen quite a few where people try to like rag on him, like he had something wrong here or he didn't understand some premise, you know.
Yeah. So when people expected him to be at D1 Masters when he first came in, that's assuming that like he's around where his like peak level is. And the fact that he was plat for so long kind of proves a lot of these people right who are critiquing his coaching that he didn't have his finger on the pulse of the game, that he didn't really understand what was going on. And that is the big thing that got so many higher level players that aren't really interested in drama, but just like are really interested in the game and the craft of League of Legends itself, is that you look at 5 minutes of a NEACE coaching and you'll find 15 things that are just objectively wrong.
Right.
Like it's not like, oh, hey, like take this fight to limit test or something. It's like, this person should not be roaming at this time, not be pushing this wave. This makes no sense. There's no logical basis for this, but it sounds really good to somebody who's lower level. So higher level players will see all of these various mistakes that are just fundamental game misunderstandings. Like the $350 meme is, oh, do this thing that's really obvious. Like if you press back, you press recall, you will go to base in 8 seconds if you don't take damage. The problem with that is that, and a more accurate way of having the $350 meme, of having the NEACE meme, would be objectively incorrect information. That'll be $350. Because it's not the fact that he's going over fundamentals, because he just doesn't have fundamentals. Like, look at his own gameplay, like the ways that he'll win, or the ways that he will generally go through the game, just shows that he really doesn't have a fundamental understanding of League.
By the way, I'll even say it, because if I mean, sadly, everyone who hates me will never give a fuck about this, but people who follow my content know this. I'll always take an L if I actually took an L. Like, if people know, obviously, yeah, I was, spoiler, I was the one who was wrong when that G2 social media admin did the NEACE meme, because that was one of the first instances someone outside of your circle did it. And here's the thing, I'll tell totally correct. I had actually the context wrong. I actually thought the context was what you just said. I thought the joke, because here's the thing, I don't actually find it a very funny joke if it's what you guys think it is. If the real joke is just he tells you something that is obvious and everyone could know, but then charges $350, it's like that's like a one-note joke, guys. And like, once you said it once, it's not really that funny, is it? I thought the joke was he tells you objectively wrong advice and then goes, that'll be $350. So that's why essentially the G2 guy did use it correctly. But I thought the whole premise was supposed to be inverted. Like, I actually gave people more credit. I thought it was funnier than it was. Like, that would be hilarious, by the way, if every angle was like, you know, you never want to fucking split push on this, champion. It's like, bro, what are you talking about? I'm like ahead of mid-silence or something, you know. If it was something like that, that'd be way funnier in my opinion. So whatever, that's whatever. By the way, one last thing I did want to ask is this. Is it implied at all? Because I know this, let's be fair, like, I can tell you, one of the reasons I do my style of journalism, I don't do Richard Lewis style, mates, is because it's really time consuming doing the Richard Lewis one. Like, it's fun when you research stuff. If you do Richard Lewis's style, spoiler, here's what you do. Someone claims, like, I'm this kind of, like, I've got a degree from this university. You now have to go away and invest like 12 hours of your life and contact all different people through all these routes and hope that eventually they corroborate at the end that that person was or wasn't at that uni. And sometimes after the 12 hours, you get nothing and it didn't go anywhere. Like, I can't handle it, mate. So I don't, if you haven't done this, fair play, but is it implied that there was even some shenanigans behind what he did in the Korean rank? Like, could there have been some boost in there? Could someone have played on his account? Has anyone even implied is there any fuckery there? Or do people accept it was real?
So I don't want to speculate on things that aren't particularly like set in stone. However, I'll say something completely unrelated. Okay. That there are services on NA in Korea where it's very common that Chinese boosting is on Korea. There are services in NA in Korea where they will queue up on 40 different accounts and they will matchmake to where there's one of the boosters on your team, one of the boosters on the enemy team. And one person on the enemy team will go 0-20. Somebody on your team will go 20-0. And they always have these sort of like Chinese names of like WX Zhao Wei Jing. Like super common to see that. And then you'll notice other different patterns in their accounts. And so that's also a way of boosting where you can play solo queue just like live in front of an audience as a streamer, as this or that. And there's no really easy way of detecting it.
I mean, you're technically not doing anything. You're just still playing the game normally. It's just that it's been arranged outside of the game. You're going to win the game, right?
And that's even something that you could do to somebody else. Yeah, true. Is that if there's this other streamer, other like player that you don't like, you could just do a D rank boost to where you look at this streamer. All right, this is the time that they queue up. Int them over and over again.
Right.
Like the ladder doesn't really have any integrity in that sense, and it's really easy to, and it's not even that expensive allegedly to do these kind of like boosting services.
Right, obviously in this interview we went all over the place. I'll probably split it into two. Do you have any final words for everyone?
This is great content. Happy that Thorin is doing this. If you guys are interested in solo queue coaching, I'm always available. Not only just for Tryndamere, I do mid-top in general.
And you can prove that you were Challenger.
Yeah, I actually can prove that I'm Challenger. And then if you want general game information, we can also talk about that stuff too. So thank you guys. Peace.
The Beatles said they get by with a little help from their friends, but I get by with a little help from my Patreon community. And this video was kindly supported by Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Ahmed Hadjou, Bot Pounder 420, Thooorin, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Jensen Goh, Tosh, and a special thanks always goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to ask me a question in my monthly video AMA? Do you want teasers to find out who are the upcoming guests? Maybe you want to take part in one of those lengthy but intense esports discussions I have with my donators, or maybe you want to suggest a guest or a topic that I could cover. Well, if any of those tickle your fancy, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today, where in the description box below there is a Patreon link.